I was stunned, my voice betraying my shock and anxiety as I processed the news. What do you mean there's been a cancellation? I asked, my voice echoing my confusion and growing worry. I was on a call during my lunch break at work, inadvertently speaking louder than I intended, and quickly lowered my voice. I hadn't requested any cancellations, so why was this happening? My thoughts ground to a halt, leaving my mind blank. On the other end of the line, the woman from the insurance company remained composed, a stark contrast to my escalating panic. According to our records, we received a cancellation request from you and the procedure has already been completed, she explained calmly. My name is Betty, and I'm a 42-year-old office worker living in an apartment with my husband Henry and our young daughter Linda. Today had been a whirlwind of chaos from the moment I woke up. Henry had announced an unexpected overnight business trip as soon as he rolled out of bed, and then he began frantically packing his bags. Meanwhile, our first-grade daughter, Linda, burst into tears, distraught over the disappearance of her math textbook. At her age, she required a lot of assistance, and her struggles only added to the day's turmoil. I found myself wishing Henry would manage his belongings without adding to the confusion by asking where his travel bag or his new socks were. This year had been particularly challenging, and thoughts of divorce had begun to haunt me more frequently. When I expressed my frustration about their lack of preparation the night before, Linda promptly apologized, genuine remorse shining in her eyes. "Sorry, Mom. I'll be more careful next time." I reassured her, "It's okay. I should have checked with you yesterday. That was my mistake." However, dealing with Henry felt like an entirely different battle. Linda was still so young, and if Henry had prepared ahead of time, we could have avoided this morning's chaos. He should have taken the initiative to sort out his socks or even buy new ones for his trip. His comments about needing new socks for his travels irritated me deeply. "I had no idea about your business trip schedule," I replied, frustration creeping into my voice. "Aren't the socks I washed and put away good enough?" His insistence on new socks struck me as odd, but I kept my opinions to myself. His business trips were infrequent, perhaps once every few months, and surely this one had been scheduled well in advance even if he hadn't mentioned it. If he needed new socks, he should have either bought them himself or told me beforehand. Seeing Linda's tear-streaked face as she pleaded, "Daddy, Mommy, please stop fighting," broke my heart. I turned to her. "Linda, I'm sorry. It's okay. Let's find your textbook together." With that, Henry quietly returned to his packing while I helped Linda search through her backpack for her missing math book. I couldn't help but glance over at Henry, frustration simmering just beneath the surface. I noticed that Henry was packing casual clothes more suited for a weekend getaway than a business trip, and this detail raised a serious red flag for me, stirring up old fears. Could he be having another affair? Given his history, my suspicions were not unfounded. He had been unfaithful twice before. The first incident happened just before Linda was born, pushing me to the brink of filing for divorce. However, after tearful apologies and interventions from his family, including heartfelt pleas from his mother and sister to give him another chance, I reluctantly decided to stay. Then, last year, he strayed again with someone he met on a dating app. Henry, who prides himself on being direct and rarely subtle, thinks he's discreet, but his attempts at secrecy often come across as transparent and almost comical from my perspective. When I caught him, he resorted to tears and apologies once more. It was both pitiful and frustrating to witness his humility, especially knowing his usual arrogance. That time, I made it clear that one more slip-up would mean the end of our marriage. I even had him sign preliminary divorce papers and transfer all our savings into my account as a precaution. Though I forgave him, my feelings for him had completely evaporated due to his selfishness and lack of involvement with Linda. I contemplated postponing the divorce until Linda was older for her sake. Thankfully, we quickly found Linda's math textbook, and she left for school with a cheerful smile. Left alone with the morning's unrest, I decided to skip making lunch and headed to a nearby shop during my break. While there, I noticed an advertisement for the insurance company and remembered that my policy was due for a bonus payment, given the high premiums I was paying. The bonuses offered by my insurance policy were significant incentives, and I found myself daydreaming about what I could buy with that money. Perhaps some new autumn clothes for Linda. Feeling a bit more positive, I stopped at the bank to check my statement, hoping to see the bonus deposited. To my surprise, the expected funds were missing. Not only that, but this month's insurance premium hadn't been deducted either. At first, I was merely puzzled by the discrepancy. However, recalling the chaotic conversation with Henry about cancellations earlier that morning, a sinking feeling began to take root within me. Concerned, I decided to contact the insurance company to figure out what was happening. My sister-in-law Alice, who usually handled my insurance matters, was off that day, so another representative took my call. That's when the confusion about the cancellation came to light. The representative informed me that a cancellation payment had been processed, but I hadn't seen any funds in my account. She insisted that all the paperwork was correct and that the company had followed proper procedures, subtly implying that the fault lay with me if the policy was canceled without my knowledge. I firmly reiterated that I had no intention of canceling the policy. I'll follow up with Alice and my husband, but please double-check everything on your end as well, I requested. After making my point clear, I ended the call. Before I knew it, my lunch break was almost over, and I realized I had neither the time nor the appetite to eat the lunch I had bought. Other concerns weighed heavily on my mind, and I felt an urgent need to address this issue promptly. I informed my boss that I needed to leave early and quickly wrapped up my remaining tasks, exiting the office ahead of schedule. Without hesitation, I called Henry, my mind racing with doubt. Was he truly on a business trip or was something else going on? Betty, why are you calling? I'm at work, Henry answered after a few rings, his voice tinged with irritation. But in the background, lively music played, casting doubt on his claim. It's ridiculous that you think you can avoid getting caught, I said, my frustration boiling over. Sorry to bother you, but my life insurance was canceled without my knowledge, and there's no record of any cancellation payment. Do you know anything about this? I'm seriously considering contacting the police as it might be a scam. Ha, calling the police? Henry replied, and then he confessed, it was me. I had suspected that Henry and Alice might be involved in this somehow, but hearing his admission made my blood boil. So it was you? Where's the cancellation payment? I demanded. I used it to help Mom out, he replied nonchalantly. Help out? Did something happen to your mother that she suddenly needed money? No, she just mentioned she wanted to go on a family trip for once. I was utterly stunned by his audacious response. You canceled my life insurance to fund a trip. Was the business shirt just a cover? Yeah, I'm the beneficiary, so you can't complain, right? We're staying at a luxurious hotel. I'm in the lobby right now, and you wouldn't believe the size of the chandelier here, Henry said, as if bragging about the details would impress me. What's with this attitude? I countered, infuriated. I have plenty of complaints. Why would you cancel the insurance without telling me? I've been paying those premiums out of my salary. You should be able to cover your trip expenses. Ah, that's so annoying, Henry replied dismissively. But it's my money if something happens to you, right? You're healthy and not in any danger, so we can just start paying the premiums again. I was dumbfounded by his flawed reasoning. The terms change as you get older, and the premiums increase. Do you not understand that? Well, I'm not the one paying for it, he shot back, his careless disregard only fueling my frustration. Do your parents know you canceled my life insurance without telling me? Didn't your father say anything? And Alice is involved in this too, right? You and Alice forged my signature, didn't you? Yeah, Mom and Dad were actually happy about it, he admitted, as if that justified his actions. They thought it was a good idea. It's your fault for controlling all our money. I just wanted to have fun for once. Henry argued as if the situation were trivial. It's no big deal. We're on a family trip, and everyone's happy. That family includes your parents and Alice, right? Why aren't Linda and I included? Aren't we family too? My voice trembled with hurt and disbelief. Insurance is meant for emergencies. Shouldn't you have discussed using it for a trip with me first? But he knew I would say no. You and Linda are always together. It's fine for me to spend time with my real family once in a while, he retorted. Plus, Alice was planning to sign you up for a new life insurance policy, so it's a win-win. I can't believe you're not embarrassed by these excuses. It's like you're a child who didn't tell me because you knew I'd object. That's exactly why you didn't tell me. You knew I'd be upset. It's so frustrating. If you're going to keep complaining, maybe I should just get a divorce, Henry said, his tone unusually bold, perhaps emboldened by being in a tourist spot. Understood, I replied sharply before hanging up. Be prepared. I'm going to make sure you and your family face the consequences. I muttered to myself as my patience finally snapped. Henry had taken my forgiveness for granted too many times. Despite my threats of divorce, I had once thought my in-laws were decent people, even though Alice had pressured me into an expensive life insurance policy. I believed she wasn't acting with malice, but decent people don't secretly cancel their daughter-in-law's life insurance to fund their own pleasures. Like husband, like family, I thought grimly. I was done with all of them. I went straight to visit the lawyer, clutching the divorce papers Henry had filled out earlier as if they were a talisman. I filed for divorce immediately. Afterward, I picked up Linda from after-school care. On our way home, I gently explained the situation to her. She seemed surprised, but I reassured her that our well-being was my top priority. Once we arrived home, she asked, "So Daddy isn't coming home anymore?" "He won't be home tonight because he's staying somewhere else. We're getting divorced, so we'll be living apart," I answered cautiously, trying to gauge her understanding and feelings. "Then let's start cleaning up now," she suggested urgently. "What's wrong?" I asked, a bit confused by her sudden urgency. "We're separated from Dad, right, Mom? You don't have to cry anymore. I hate it when Dad makes you upset," Linda explained. "Didn't you always tell us to stop fighting because you were worried about me being sad?" Of course, I admitted. I had planned to avoid divorce for Linda's sake, but it seemed she had been suppressing her true feelings all along. She often intervened in our arguments out of concern for me. "Daddy never plays with me, even on his days off. When I try to talk to him, he just says, 'Be quiet, go away,' like this morning. He only uses me to say mean things to you. I've been so sad. I love you, Mom." She smiled at me and her warmth filled my heart. Seeing Linda's understanding of the situation and her resolve was heart-wrenching, bringing tears to my eyes. Her insights into how Henry had prioritized himself over us both made it clear that she was ready for a change too. "I understand, sweetheart. I'm sorry for putting you through such difficult times. From now on, it will just be the two of us, but I promise to take good care of you. I love you so much." "Yay!" Linda exclaimed joyfully, filling me with a renewed determination. I vowed never to let Linda feel sad again. While she worked on her homework beside me, I busied myself with tasks like consulting a lawyer and researching real estate agents and moving companies. I reached out to my parents to discuss our next steps, gathering their support to ensure that Linda and I would have a strong network as we move forward. When I explained the situation to my parents, their immediate response was to tell me to come home right away so that Linda wouldn't have to change schools. My father also offered to borrow a truck from a friend to help us move our belongings. The next morning, I informed the landlord, Linda's school, and the families in her carpool group that we would be relocating to my parents' house, briefly explaining the circumstances. I planned to handle the school's detailed paperwork later and called my workplace to request a day off for the next day. I wanted to complete most of the preparations before Henry returned. By the time Henry got back the next day, my parents had arrived, and we swiftly moved our belongings to their home. Everything was settled except for Henry's things, which remained in the apartment. I left a note that read, "We are divorced. We are strangers now," and exited the apartment. I imagined Henry's shock at finding us gone, feeling a wave of relief and satisfaction wash over me. The smooth execution of this divorce was a testament to the lessons learned during Henry's previous affair. I had warned him then. The next time there would be no discussion. We were getting divorced. We had agreed that I would retain custody of Linda and all marital assets. With that in mind, Linda and I began our new life at my parents' house. Later, my frantic mother-in-law called. She must have reached out because I had blocked Henry's number. Knowing Henry's tendency to cry easily, despite his usual bravado, I pictured him sobbing away. "What are you thinking, divorcing my son when he hasn't even cheated this time?" she yelled, her voice loud enough to hurt my ears. I instinctively pulled the phone away from my ear. "Betty, it's not too late to apologize to my son right now. He's been crying nonstop because he's so upset. Aren't you embarrassed to make such a fuss over this?" Apologize. I was so taken aback by her words that I blurted out, "Who are you?" My mother-in-law clearly didn't expect such a response and her words suddenly stopped. "Well, yes, it's me, your mother-in-law. Come on, Betty, what's wrong with you? You're not losing your mind, are you? You're still young." "No, I only have one mother. Are you some kind of scam artist?" I replied, half jokingly yet pointedly. I felt no obligation to engage in a serious conversation with her, considering we were now divorced and effectively strangers, especially after their past actions like canceling my life insurance without my permission. I saw no reason to engage seriously. Don't joke around, Betty. If you're going to act like this, we have our own ways of dealing with things, she warned, her voice seething with anger. And what exactly can you do? I countered, skepticism lacing my words. We agreed that if there was another issue, I'd get a divorce immediately. Henry himself told me over the phone that he wanted a divorce. My firm stance made her pause, and I seized the opportunity to press further. If you wanted to go on a trip, you should have consulted me first. Instead, you committed a crime. Unauthorized cancellation of life insurance can be considered forgery, punishable by imprisonment. I'm ready to pursue this thoroughly. I knew of no financial troubles in Henry's family, so their actions struck me as not just impulsive but reckless, and I couldn't let it slide. Wait a minute, we can't be criminals. Please, I'm sorry, let's talk, she stammered, her tone shifting suddenly at the mention of possible imprisonment. But it was too late for apologies or discussions. I hung up the phone and blocked my in-laws' numbers, distancing myself from any further toxic interactions. This decisive break marked a new chapter for Linda and me, one where we could seek peace and stability away from past upheavals. Later, I found out that Henry was so shocked by the divorce that he quit his job and withdrew from social activities, effectively isolating himself. As for the life insurance debacle, we managed to resolve it through an out-of-court settlement designed for such disputes. My sister-in-law ended up being dismissed from the insurance company, which even made minor headlines. The actions of my in-laws turned them into subjects of neighborhood gossip, and they faced criticism from relatives over their poor judgment and disgraceful actions, leading to their social isolation. With both Henry and my sister-in-law out of work, they appeared to be facing financial struggles. Meanwhile, Linda and I were relishing a happy and liberated life at my parents' home. Despite the challenges this situation posed for my daughter, I was committed to providing her with all the love and care she deserved. In this new chapter of our lives, we found peace and stability, supported by my parents' love, and we were gradually rebuilding our lives free from past turmoil.